He entered without knocking. Not loudly, not stealthily. Just as if he already knew where to go. A dark blazer, a folder under his arm, a badge around his neck. The badge was blank, no name, no title, just a photo, out of focus. He walked past the desks, greeted people, first, and somehow everyone replied. By the second day, he was already signing documents. By the third, leaving comments. By the fourth, they listened to him. By the sixth, a report was brought to him. They asked for his signature. He didn't read it, just signed. Everyone accepted it, except one. The man with the blank badge. It had no number. It lay on top of the others, thin, unmarked, with a blank field in the upper right corner. No to process mark, just a pale pencil note. Review, no registration. Folders like that never stayed long. They were usually skimmed, marked not for us, and returned, or discarded, or accidentally left on top of a cabinet until the edges yellowed. But he took it with him. No comments, no initials. The folder was oddly assembled, formally, neat, pages in chronological order, copies stapled, even the paper, not standard office stock, but the older, fibrous kind. But inside, emptiness, not literally. The pages were filled, the signatures were there, but there were no outgoing records, not a single one. Not a single document issued under the name of the person who had signed the entire stack. He flipped through again, slowly. The signatures were different, but the handwriting was the same. Different pressure, different style, different dates, but the same curve in the first letter, as if someone had forged themselves. He closed the folder, not quickly, not irritated, with the quiet caution used when closing a door behind which there might be a draft, and placed it in the third drawer, the one used for things not meant for reports. He had seen this before, once, 15 years ago. Back then, he hadn't intervened. Back then, it all faded. Only a line remained in the system, and a person who was never called back. Now, he postponed, not from fear, from knowing. It was too soon. Others needed to see. He couldn't be the first. The next day he arrived earlier than usual. The office was quiet. Even the water cooler didn't hum. On the desk, a new folder with the same handwriting. He wasn't surprised. He simply opened it, sat down, and began to read. He never knew everyone by name. Hundreds worked in this building, some for months, some for years. Some disappeared before even getting a digital key. People came, signed things, left. The folders remained, and he reviewed them. Sometimes automatically he marked approved. Sometimes not. Just closed them. No comments, no signature, if he wasn't sure. Once he calculated, over the years, about 9,000 cases had passed through him, but names he remembered almost none, except those who left quietly, too quietly. He didn't notice this man right away. Not because of his face, it was ordinary. Not because of his clothes, they fit the dress code. He noticed because of how he entered. Everyone went through the frame. There was a turnstile, a code, a scanner. This one appeared from within, as if he had already been there, already passed, already knew, as if he hadn't come in but returned. The badge on his chest was blank, no name, no photo, just a piece of plastic in a transparent holder. It hung slightly tilted, and the ceiling lights didn't catch it, almost like a shadow. He passed by calmly. No one asked. The guard nodded. Someone said, "Well, good morning." He nodded in return. That's when the feeling flickered. Not fear, but unease. As if the sound didn't match the motion. As if the man walked too evenly, without pause. As if there had never been a moment of entering. He took note, silently, internally. There were no folders connected to that man. Not yet. But he still opened the third drawer. Checked. Empty, just in case. He placed a blank form there. No signature, no stamp. Left one line open and mentally noted, if he shows up, we'll see how he enters the system. The folders started appearing on the third day. At first, 1, then 2. A week later, 6. All with incoming numbers, but no responses, no approvals, no routing. As if the papers simply passed through. They were signed, stamped, entered into the system, but no one remembered seeing them. None had passed through him. He didn't raise an alarm, just began to take notes. In pencil, small, along the inner edge. No approval. Off route. Then he started rewriting dates. Then he began stacking them separately. Then he asked, "Did you approve this?" The colleague at the next desk didn't even turn. "What?" "This project, signed with this." He showed the page. The signature was faded, almost smeared, like from a very old copier. The colleague shrugged. "Yeah, it's always like that, as long as it's got a stamp." He looked at him for a few seconds, then said quietly without pressing, "What if it's not yours?" The other paused for a moment, then smirked. "Then someone else did. Why are you stressing? Not your first year." He went back to his desk, looked at the stack, then pulled one sheet, already familiar. The same signature again. As if one and the same person was signing for everyone. He held the paper closer to the lamp. The paper was normal, but the ink didn't seem absorbed. The lines looked lifeless, as if they had been laid on top. Or copied. He opened the database, entered the number. The registry said, "Signed by employee, name absent. Badge, unregistered." He wasn't surprised, just saved a copy and placed it in the third drawer. On the top sheet, once more in pencil, outgoing missing, signature without holder. The signature began to repeat. At first, barely noticeably. Small coincidences, a familiar loop in a letter, a recurring slant. Then plainly, the same flourish, the same commas used incorrectly, the same style copied from itself. He began to collect the pages separately. Then, entire folders. Soon there were 18. He wanted to stop it. Not officially, not through a memo. For real. To raise the question, expose it, draw attention. But he knew. Would they hear? He had seen this before. Long ago. Back then, the dates didn't match. He made a fuss, put together a spreadsheet, took it upstairs. They told him to wait. Said, "We'll look into it." 3 days later, the spreadsheet vanished. 2 weeks later, so did he, but just temporarily. Unpaid leave. He had been allowed back only because it never reached the commission, but the memory remained. Since then, he had been more cautious, looked longer, checked more, and spoke less. He looked up at the lamp. The light flickered. Not the first time today. He stood, walked to the circuit box, flipped the phase, returned. Another folder lay on the desk. New, as if someone had placed it there while he was distracted. On the first page, a signature. The same one. But this time, not just under a copy, it was original. With living ink. A fresh date. Today's date. He ran his finger over the signature. The paper was dry. The ink was not. Just now, someone had just written it. He stood, took the folder in his hands, went to the archive, climbed to the second floor, opened the signature registry. No name, no surname, no badge number, but the signature was listed as valid, with a note, entered manually, source not specified. He stared at it for a long time, then slowly closed the folder, returned to his floor, and on the inner spine, wrote the first line, "Live signature, without holder, verification required." He knew this would now go outside the walls, and he wasn't sure if that was safe. It didn't come right away. First, a phone call from internal audit, then a service note, then a meeting under the title to clarify document processing procedures. He wasn't surprised, not even that he was assigned as observer and not as the initiator. It had happened before, and now again. The auditors arrived with tablets, 2 of them, young, in suits, with laptops and blank faces. They started with the system, reviewed the registry, requested logs, asked for signature samples. He handed over everything he'd collected. Clean, neat, chronologically arranged. They nodded, made notes. Then one of them said, "Strange, but could be a glitch. It happens." He didn't answer, just gestured. "This is over 6 weeks." The man fell silent, then added, "We'll look into it." The next day, 3 files disappeared from the system. 2 days later, the records of those who approved them vanished. By the 4th day, the interface updated. Some fields became inaccessible for viewing. He checked, entered the old code. Nothing. At lunch, someone said, "Did you hear? They suspended him." "Who?" "That guy with the badge." "Oh, yeah, weird. He seemed fine. We all worked with him." "Well, yeah." Shrugs, clinking dishes. Someone set the kettle on. "Maybe it's a mistake." "Maybe. Just feels fast." He walked into the hallway. The same folder now lay in the cabinet. Closed. But the key, he had it. He felt no victory, not even relief. The check came, nodded, and left. No one said yes. No one said no. As if the whole thing was being left to settle, to see what happens. He knew how it worked. The system doesn't collapse. It recoils, waits, changes labels, then returns, slightly changed, with a different badge. He went back to his desk. The same folder was still in the drawer. He ran his hand across it. The paper still felt warm. It happened 2 weeks later. The folders started coming again, slower, rarer, more subtle, but they came. He kept his hand on the pulse, no longer with a pencil, with his eyes. He had learned to spot it from the first page. The paper was slightly thinner, the ink settled unnaturally, the date too fresh, and above all, the signature. The same, copied, but not a copy. The flourish had become sharper, less space between the letters, as if it was another hand, but the same formula. He stood up. Didn't take the folder, only the sheet. For the first time, he went upstairs himself, walked the corridor, climbed to the 3rd floor, knocked on the door. "May I?" The man at the desk looked up, young, clean shirt, short hair, surprised, but not scared. "Is this, your approval?" The man glanced. "Well, yeah, we agreed to use the template. It was sent to me." He laid the paper on the desk. "This signature isn't yours." The guy hesitated. "I don't know. They said it's allowed. Saves time. Doesn't matter who signs, as long as it's from the department." He didn't raise his voice, just said, "You can't." The young man watched in silence and then a little quieter. "Does it matter?" He nodded. "Yes, even if no one checks, you'll know." Silence, then a small nod, wordless. He turned to leave. At the door, he looked back. "And one more thing. If you're not sure, put it in the bottom drawer. No signature. Let it rest." The young man nodded again, a little differently. Downstairs, he sat at his desk. The folder was waiting, but now there was another beside it, an older one, without approval. He opened it, the spine blank. He took a pencil, wrote faintly, "Pending, but not forgotten," and closed it, this time not all the way. He arrived earlier than everyone. The corridors were still dark. The coffee machine hadn't warmed the water. The lights flickered on with delay. He opened the top drawer. There it was, the same folder. Thin, neatly numbered. Not a single document inside had ever received a resolution, but none had disappeared either. He took it out, laid it beside him, opened the bottom drawer. Inside, an old badge, the one never listed in any system. No name, no photo, no RFID layer, as if it was made not for access, but for presence. He held it in his hand, turned it over. The plastic was warm, as if it had its own life. Placed it on the table, and that's when he noticed it. At the edge of the new stack of forms where nothing should have been, another badge, clean, fresh, with a different photo. No name, but the same feeling. made to exist, but not to be recorded. He looked at it for a long time, then at the old one, then at the door. He didn't throw it out, didn't hand it in, didn't raise an alert, didn't shrug. He simply took both badges, opened an empty folder, placed them inside, closed it, and set it on the shelf between the file for decommissioned equipment and the one with missing pages. When the others began to arrive, he was already standing by the window, looking at no one, explaining nothing. He simply stayed, in a building where the wrong signature could still get through, where familiar strokes still appeared on blank forms, where one could overlook or pretend not to see. But now someone would.